You opened the show with Spike Island, and there's a line in it, which is a great line, that I was born to perform. Is that sort of describing yourself?
I suppose so. I started saying that line at the end of concerts, but my manager, who was in the crowd tonight, told me to stop doing it. She said it sounds too big-headed. But, you know, I suppose, you know, as you get older, you realise when you're younger, you think you can do anything in the world, don't you? But my thing is, the line that comes after that is, I exist to do this, shouting and pointing. And that is really, all I really do is shout, point, and jump on top of those boxes. And
Hey guys, how's it going?
Hello, it's going.
So it's Sunday, July 6th. I think we should maybe spend a couple minutes, even though this is a Pulp episode, talk a little bit about the Oasis reunion shows, the first two. I know that we were texting back a little bit, our kind of just a few odds and ends and videos and stuff. From what little I could gather, it seemed pretty fantastic.
Yeah, I watched that, some of that live stream of that guy, whoever he was. And it seemed like everybody was just losing their minds.
Yeah. Just reading the press, I jotted down a few headlines. BBC, best they've been since the 90s at Cardiff comeback gig. The Independent, in Cardiff, Oasis deliver the rock reunion to end them all. Seems a little lofty, but I get it. I get how people can get caught up in that. It seemed like a great show. Those songs are amazing. The production value seemed really good with the video and stuff. The intro video and then kind of what they had behind the band as they were playing. New York Times, the Gallaghers reunite. Their song still stomping and wound still healing. I don't know what the wound still healing part's all about. NME. Okay.
It's interesting. Today I saw somebody on Threads mention that they hadn't seen them together in any like paparazzi photographs. So they'd only seen the official photo shoot from the announcement and then on stage together. And I thought that was kind of an interesting observation because surely at some point they would have been spotted together should everything be normal.
It's possible that they're not really hanging out at all. One of the articles I read today said that after the second Cardiff show, maybe it was the first one, like Liam exited the stage and immediately got into a SUV and drove away. So it's like they might not be hanging out.
That same thing. And Paul, from what you said before, and I think I kind of had forgotten about this, but Liam saying stuff about Noel's family, I think that specifically his wife at the time, which you're right. I mean, I think that stuff is probably harder to forgive and forget than, say, Liam calling Noel a potato head, you know?
Look like a potato, doesn't
Here's one that I took offense to. NME, a supersonic reunion for a new generation. What the hell, guys? What about us old folk who've kind of been hanging around them for a bit? I did seem like there were a lot of younger people there, younger kids, maybe early 20s, which I think is understandable. Whenever you have a great rock band, people are going to continue to discover their music as they grow up and discover it and connect with it or get a recommendation from a friend.
kind of funny because my perception of like grown-up bands when I was a teenager or early 20s, like I think about looking back on the Rolling Stones and just being like, they're so old. And then, of course, I love the Stones, but when I was young, I would just never have had an interest in old guys. So I feel like the Gen Z, they are more accepting of just good music, or that's just me being a dick, you know?
Well, there was definitely people there with their young children that they had brought with them, and but it's hard. I don't know. Like, it's hard to judge like how it is in the UK and like how many young people are excited. I mean, I saw a dude in an Oasis shirt yesterday, and I was like, "That's so weird." Like, and there's definitely in the US for sure. Like, there's more interest. They're all of a sudden a thing again, surely because of the tour, but it's definitely the amount of excitement and interest is surprising to me. Like, I obviously in the UK people are gonna be going nuts, but like this US shows all sold out so fast.
Yeah.
You know, how Slow Dive had that whole TikTok success. And then I don't know, I feel like music discovery is completely different now. So you know, it wouldn't surprise me if kids find out about all kinds of older bands, maybe just because of their popularity that's being surfaced right in front of them. Um, and that we didn't have that, you know.
Yeah. Well, in any case, I think it all seems fairly positive, which is nice. I mean, people just seem excited, and I haven't read too many. Like, I guess I can't remember if one of you guys texted this, but there was some thing I ran across that was like, there's been suggestion that Liam's using, pitch correction. I'm like, all right, like what? That seems completely speculative, and I wouldn't buy that without some kind of evidence.
Yeah, I mean, I was so actually, yeah, shout out to Hazy Days, who was the live streamer that gave us access to 7 or 8 songs the other day. But when I heard his vocal, I was like, that sound really good. Like, he sounded
Did
great.
it did?
But I'm with you. I don't think it's like auto tune.
I have a feeling that the overall like excitement will die down a bit once as the tour progresses, but it was pretty exciting. On the 4th and with the Hazy Days live stream, and I was like, "Oh, shit," that was very cool because it's like, even though it sounded terrible, it was like it was kinda like you're there, a little bit, and, like, just to be able to experience a few songs in real time.
Yeah, I was so excited by that when I found it, and it was terrible, like you say, but you got the vibe, and you could see how excited everybody was, and I kind of got caught up in that too. It was cool.
It's not a shock to me that people are talking about these shows and using, kind of putting that looking at it through the lens of like Oasis being the best band of that era or with the best songs. I read some stuff where it's like the best songs of that era and stuff like that. There's certainly probably the most popular, especially when it comes to here in the States. But I mean, I think maybe you guys would feel a similar way, but I saw an amazing Pulp show last year. I saw an amazing Blur show last year. Both didn't have the production value that I've seen in the videos for the Oasis show so far, but they didn't really need it. Like the performances and the music stand on their own, and I would say that's true for Oasis as well. But I think fans of the broader genre, whatever that means, I know we're kind of touching on that last time, um, would probably disagree with that, I think. I don't know, maybe not.
Disagree with what? What are we talking? I'm a little lost.
So I read something, actually a lot of the articles were kind of talking about it around the terms of Oasis being the best um band from that genre with the best songs. I don't know, I'm probably misquoting, but it did feel like um well, I mean, just kind of going back to the headlines. Um Oasis deliver the rock reunion to end them all.
Yeah, that's a little bullshit. I mean, they were the biggest band, of those bands, and so yeah, that's true. But like as I was listening to the new Pulp album today and kind of just thinking back, like I guess my argument would be that I think that Jarvis Cocker is probably the greatest showman of our generation. I mean, like going to see Oasis live is more of a communal, like everybody's jumping up and down and singing all the words, and that's great. But they're not showmen, And like I think a Pulp show is a more exciting thing to see. I mean, But yeah, I think it's the media is just like, well, Oasis were the biggest band of that era and of that genre, and as they make these headlines, and I don't know, I think it's makes too much sense to get too upset about them or like read too much into them. They're not putting that much thought into it, I don't think.
Plus, let's be fair, there's a significant amount of hype for these shows. Um, and yeah, I mean, I'm not taking away anything from Oasis. I mean, if I were at any of those shows, either of those two shows or any of the shows coming up, I would be super amped to be seeing them. So you're right. I think it's probably um people write people write headlines and sometimes it's very grand statements.
But
Um okay. Well, maybe to segue into the topic today, um, this time last week, there were just as many glowing reviews that I read about Pulp's surprise, I guess, in quotes, um, Glastonbury performance. I say surprise, I it's hard. I don't pay attention to a lot of I try to catch what I can, but when I saw that they performed, I was like, "Oh, wow, that's great. It was amazing." And then when I read a little deeper, it seemed like everyone suspected that Patchwork was going to be Pulp. That being said, the fact that that performance took place, I think it was 30 years after that star-making performance. I think Pulp is a band that likes to play with time as a motif, I think in the lyrics. Um, and just I think it was a bit of poetic justice maybe that, obviously that performance in 95 at Glastonbury was just stuff that people still talk about, or just a historic moment in 90s rock music. And to have a performance that people were super amped about. I think you could talk about nostalgia acts and stuff like that. Um, that's not what Pulp is for me, but I could see how someone would label them that maybe. I think anytime a band reunites after some time away, um, but I just feel like they've just picked it up, and especially with the new album, which, we're gonna talk about in a second. I don't know. I just thought I don't really want to call it bookends because they're still continuing on, but as kind of marked moments in time, I thought it was really cool how they put on a great performance 30 years after that initial.
Yeah, there's a lot of love for Pulp. I mean, they're soap opera free, right? If you want to put it that way. And Jarvis is just insanely likable. And all of their songs have always been really relatable. So I just feel like you're not going to get the same level of controversial opinions or sound bites with Pulp as you are with Oasis.
I thought that it was, I don't know if you guys noticed, they had denied that they said they weren't playing Glastonbury. And I think it was in an interview with Candida where she was like, yeah, they just weren't interested in having us play for the 30th anniversary. So they like publicly, you know, kind of played with it, which I thought it was when I read that, I was like, that's crazy. Why would the promoters and bookers not want them to play? And I just kind of didn't think about it and was like, oh, all right, whatever. Um, but I thought that was pretty clever. I like that they did that.
Yeah, being so far away, I had no idea that they'd be playing until I got the text from you, Seth, that they had played. And that night I watched it on iPlayer, I think. It was great.
Yeah.
The only song I saw from it was Spike Island, but it was good.
It was great. Yeah, it sounded really good. Like towards the end of the set, they were like, "Okay, we're being hurried along," uh, and then they carried on playing like 3 or 4 more songs after he first said, "We're running out of time." And then like he kept doing these funny intros to the songs too, which I probably aware that he does, but I hadn't really noticed it as much as at 1 a.m. after several beers that I had. Um, but he does all of these funny preambles and then goes into saying the title of the song, and then they just start playing, which I kind of really amused me. And I really enjoyed it when he introduced that they were going to be playing Babies. But yeah, that set was a real great blend of new and nostalgia. It was really good. If you can catch it, definitely do.
I'm gonna look up the set list because I don't know what all they played. Oh wow, okay. Acrylic Afternoons is an interesting choice.
Yep.
OU is a
And that
strange choice. Everything else seems pretty obvious. But yeah, I don't know. I don't have anything else to say about the Glastonbury performance because I only saw one song.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I mean, let's push forward into the record. More. It's the new Pulp record, 8th studio album, first since 2001's We Love Life, 24 years ago. Produced by James Ford, which probably just worth noting that he's kind of the producer of the moment for bands that I love, right? I mean, he did the last couple Arctic Monkeys records. I think he did the last Gorillaz.
He did the Blur album.
Yeah, he did the Ballad of Darren. I think he did the last Depeche Mode record, maybe the last two. But yeah, it seems like he's kind of the it guy. And you know, if you go and look at his production credits, it's a lot more than that. But I'm just kind of focusing on the bands that I geek out over. I think it was amazing that More hit #1 in the UK. For the first week, which I think I don't know the chart performance. I don't really pay attention to that too much, but when it's a band like Pulp and I read that tidbit, I just have to pause and kind of think about it for a second because it seems huge that they achieved a #1 record in this day and age, and I think it speaks to what Wayne was saying about Pulp being beloved, especially in the UK and, you know, globally too. At least here in the States, I think the two shows that I've been to, and then I saw Jarvis show and then Jarvis solo, and the crowd just eating it up every second. It's always a good time. So yeah, I mean, bands we love and we respect and are big fans of. It's always nice to see when they do something new. It gets you know, people seem to love it. I think that's always a good sign.
I mean, they really seem to be riding this huge wave right now. I wouldn't be surprised if they did another record after this because it just seems like the shows are being so well received. The record's was #1. I know that I talked to Tony at Tone Deaf about it, and he's like, lots of people are coming in asking me how the album is. There's definitely interest in the US here too. So I hope that they continue on.
I think they will. There's a lot of momentum. It's really good to see how well it is being received. And I was just thinking back to like Seth, your point about them being #1. It's really cool, and it's so great to see like hardworking bands get rewarded with that kind of. I don't know how important being #1 really is, but it's just nice to get that recognition. I remember a few years ago when Mogwai got #1 with "As the Love Continues," and it's just a really cool moment.
I would say that was a lot more shocking than Pulp hitting #1.
Absolutely, but it's just such a cool little thing that happens, and you're like,
Yeah,
oh,
no, I
good,
agree.
everybody's paying attention. That's really cool.
Well, I think just in its simplest definition, I guess, of a #1 record, it means that well, I don't know about the masses, but enough people are caring to make it on top of this chart that registers. You know, I actually don't know how the UK registers their charts. I'm not really up to speed on how America does it either. I do think that there's an element of streaming that factors in, so I don't know that it's always purchased records, but I think the sentiment is the same. You know, if you are on top of this chart that is using to measure music that has been released that is popular, I just thought it was pretty fantastic that that Pulp did that. So I wanted to ask you guys, did you ever think that we would see a new Pulp record?
I was hopeful, beginning when they started playing shows again. And when I saw them in San Francisco, it definitely felt like they had a lot to offer, and they debuted a couple songs at that show. Um, so by then I was like, okay, we'll get one, but I didn't know when it would be, what it would be like, and how soon it would be after seeing them.
I was shocked at how quickly it came about, but I believe that it only took them 3 weeks to record, and that Jarvis had all of the lyrics written before they went into the studio, which is not the way he had worked in the past. So I think they were like really prepared. And they were, debuting, a new song at almost every show during the US tour, which made it very obvious that there was going to be a new record. But yeah, it came super quick. I didn't think it would come as quick as it did.
He even talked about like the last record just taking so long as well because he was farting around in the studio a lot and he didn't really know which way he wanted to go with it. And this felt like a very organic, fast, easy process, which is
Yeah,
why we
definitely.
obviously got
And
it.
just to clarify, when I say it came super fast, obviously it was 24 years, but what I meant was super fast after it became obvious that they were going to do a new album, meaning as they were debuting new songs, it became obvious that they had a whole new record that they were going to record. But it was like they ended the US tour and immediately went into the studio and just knocked it out and like got the artwork and the packaging and the videos together seemingly very, very quickly.
Definitely.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I look at it as because they had reunited once before. What is it? What was it? 2012. And I don't know. Did they do a big tour around that, or was that just like they were playing Coachella, so then they played? I don't know. I'd have to go back and refresh my memory. But
I think I had an opportunity. I don't think they played like a full US tour.
yeah, I saw them at a warm up show for Coachella at I think Fox Theater in Pomona. So yeah, I mean that aside, I don't remember how. Although they did. I think they played a handful of shows at the very least because remember they came out with that documentary too, Lost in the Supermarket. Let me see. Pulp Reunion 20. I'll get to the bottom of this. Series of concerts and festival dates around the world, marking their first performances. This is going on hiatus in 2002. Union included appearances at festivals like Coachella and Primavera, as well as their own headlining shows. Looks like they played the UK, USA, Mexico. So I mean, pretty substantial. Probably not as big as this current tour. I think they made a grander announcement around it. The whole tease of this is what we do for an encore. Um, and then leading up to them, basically saying, "Hey, we're continuing on." And then, um, Paul, to your point, the fact that they're debuting a new song on every stop in the U.S., yeah, I mean, it was pretty apparent that a new record was going to be released. But speaking for myself, I don't know that I ever thought that they would release a record. And I guess really the only thing I have to compare it to is for some reason I always want to think of Pavement because I think Pavement reunited around the same time, maybe the year before, um, and they've reunited since for a second time, and no new recorded material, which I think is fine. I know, Paul, you and I maybe have differing opinions. I'm not always chomping at the bit for new music, from a band reuniting, only because I think it's mainly because I don't think it's gonna live up to what I want it to be. Um, and this Pulp record is the perfect example of proving me so wrong about that. Because I feel like this record um, really stands toe to toe with any other record um, in their discography, and I think it feels like it's a classic record already. Whereas with Blur, I love the Magic Whip, I love the Ballad of Darren, but if I'm being honest, I don't think those records rate as highly as The Great Escape or Modern Life is Rubbish or Park Life.
Yeah, I disagree.
You think those Blur records do rate as high?
I think Ballad of Darren is a fantastic record. I like Magic Whip too. It's a little more disjointed, maybe. I feel like Darren is just so easy to listen to all the way through. I like all the songs. There isn't one that I don't like. Magic Whip is just there's a couple wonky, maybe I don't know, tracks that I could live without. But I like both of those records, and I think they both are welcome additions to the catalog. But Wayne and I always beef over when I think I said I like Darren more than I like Great Escape. And I stand by that because there are just too many songs on Great Escape that just like, I just could,
It's a bloated record, I'll give you that.
it's way too long. And like, there's just some songs where I just cannot get through. I can't listen to them. And that's just not the case with Darren, which I'll happily listen to all the way through, including the 2 bonus tracks.
Yeah, I
Yeah, I'm not
love Darren too, and I love Magic Whip. I think for me, this is just one person's opinion. When I listen to Magic Whip and then I listen to Ballad of Darren, it feels like a band that is recording a record in that moment. Whereas I feel like with Pulp, if you didn't know when this record came out, say you were just somebody in the future going through Pulp's records and you're just listening to them, you didn't know anything about when they were recorded and stuff. I think this record could be feasibly have been recorded a couple years after We Love Life. I feel like it's that in tune with the ethos and the aesthetic of vintage Pulp, and it hasn't lost anything. And I don't think Blur lost anything with either of their 2 records kind of post reunion, but they just feel like there's a gap between them for me. Wayne,
I
what do you
agree
think?
with that. Absolutely agree with you on that. The Blur albums are definitely uh, way more grown up band uh, rather than the cheeky. Let's go back to Great Escape when they're lads, and the songs are funny and cheeky. Darren is really introspective, and it's its own thing. Pulp, I think, could slot right in around this is hardcore time. Like it really is a pulp classic record sounding. And it feels a little bit more grown up and a little bit more mature, but it's still got all of that pulp goodness that you want. With the spoken word bits, the long-winded storytelling and like Farmer's Market, stuff like that just makes for a great pulp album.
So I would argue that Blur are much more mercurial than Pulp. Their albums generally, I'd say, vary much more, from record to record than like Pulp's albums. So there's that. But also keep in mind that when Blur did Magic Whip, that was, they did the jam session in Hong Kong where they just recorded whatever. And then Graham went back to it with Stephen Street and worked it all up and then presented it to Damon and he added his vocals. So it was a completely weird way to make a record. And I think that's one of the reasons why it's doesn't quite sound cohesive. But I get what you're saying, what you guys are saying about more just it sounds like it could have been recorded a couple years after We Love Life. And I would add that I think that with all the strings and the orchestrations on this album, I feel like that's what they wanted to get when they recorded We Love Life with Scott Walker. I mean, which makes total sense. Scott Walker's records are so orchestrated, and I feel like that's what they want, but they didn't quite achieve that with We Love Life, and I think that they did achieve that with more.
Yeah, I think We Love Life is such like a just I don't want to call it an outcast from their catalog, but they were definitely trying to do something different. and they certainly did, depending, for better or worse, depending on your opinion of that record. Um, and to see where Scott Walker, where his music personally was going, um, around that time, and especially, the last couple he made before he passed, they were very experimental, very out there. There's a lot of moments that I really like in that music, but I guess to get to the point, I think they probably wanted to. I think Pulp probably wanted to make a different sounding record. And I know Jarvis is a big fan of Scott Walker. So yeah, but I think if they had stayed together post We Love Life, I have to wonder what the next album within, say they had recorded it within 3 to 4 years after We Love Life. Um, it's impossible to say for sure. My gut tells me they probably would have gone back to um the more straightforward, catchy, melodic songs that they were known for. Which makes me think, that's why this record feels like it could have come, a few years after that in the chronology. I think if we want to kind of break it down and talk about specific songs, I think Spike Island, especially for a lead single and the lead track on the album, is completely a Pulp song. I don't feel like there's any, I don't know. I don't feel like the band are trying to be what they used to be. I think they just are. For whatever reason, these people, minus, of course, I think we'd be remiss if we didn't mention Steve Mackey's passing, and, there's a void there with the band as far as a member who contributed a lot and was with the band since 1989. But I think that in the liner notes I saw, it said dedicated to Steve Mackey. We did the best we could do, or something like that. And, my opinion is they knocked it out of the fucking park with this record.
They absolutely did. It's really good. It's actually another ballad of Darren for you, Paul. Like, this is a record I put on and just listened through the whole thing. And for me, it's a really easy listen. The thing that I am missing a little bit on this record is that sort of sinister Pulp, the sort of sneaking around Pulp, the quiet whispering of Jarvis talking about seedy situations. And I think that is probably reflective of a more grown-up band. But yeah, if that's my one criticism, then they've made a really great record anyway.
I hadn't thought about that, but I yeah, I mean, like a song like This Is Hardcore has a very sinister undertone to it, and that's not really reflected anywhere on this record, but it doesn't bother me. I really only have a couple minor complaints about the record as a whole. Should I go into those now, or should
Well,
we?
yeah, no, I definitely want to hear those. I would
Go into your
say,
Coca-Cola rant, Paul.
I'm going to.
well, hold on, because what I want to say is, as far as I know what you mean, Wayne, when you say kind of that sinister, lurking, peeking around the corner, kind of like peeping Tom Pulp. I hear what you mean. I think, as just from musically, that capturing that feeling, I think there's two songs, Slow Jam and then My Sex. When I heard My Sex initially, I think I was kind of listening kind of to the music. I didn't really focus on the lyrics, and I said, "Oh boy, here's horny Jarvis making an appearance." When you go back and when you read the lyrics,
It's not really like that.
no, it's not a horny song at all. Like, it's more
Mhm.
kind of introspective, and um I don't want to say a social commentary, but there is, he touches on gender, and things like that are very much a part of um the political and the cultural conversation these days. So, yeah, you kind of threw me a curveball. I thought we were having horny Jarvis, and I think it was more, Jarvis just kind of.
It's, in My Love, Got to Have Love. I'm getting My Sex and Got to Have Love confused there. He's he sings the line, "Without love, you're just jerking off inside someone else." And, like, that really fucking caught me off guard, and it's
Yeah,
hilarious.
it
Um,
is.
but like, that is fucking classic Jarvis Cocker right there. Great line.
Yeah, I
And
mean,
the fact that that was the second single from the record to include that line is so bold.
Yeah, I love it. That's a good one.
Well, I
That's
mean,
a good line.
he's had these just like stop you in your tracks lyrics, and that's the one on this record that struck me too. But I think if I'm to give another example, the one that always makes me, or at least did when I initially listening to it, was in Dishes, where he says, "I am not Jesus, but I have the same initials." It's like, I don't know, that always stuck with me, that line, as being genius, and also like kind of like, what the fuck does he mean by that? But Paul, I would love to hear your criticisms. I know the Coke jingle is one, which, feel free to talk about that. But
Right.
what else is there that
I
you?
will. Before we get on to that, because we're talking about lyrics, I think one of my favorite lyrics on the record is from the song Tina. I have a few things to say about this. So the lyric is where he says, "Screwing in a charity shop on top of black bin bags," which I'm assuming just means like that's the British version of trash bags. Right, Wayne?
Confirming, yes.
And then he goes on, "Full of donations, the smell of digestive biscuits in the air." And like the fucking verbal acrobatics he does to squeeze those lyrics in is something that normally I would not approve of, because it's fairly awkward, but it's like the only time on the album where he does that, so I give him a pass. And also the lyrics are just so fucking great. Like, but that goes by so quickly, it's kind of almost hard to catch it the first couple times. But you guys know the line I'm talking about, right?
Yeah, it's towards the end, right?
Yeah, the end of Tina.
Yeah, and it's funny because there's a very distinct smell to a charity shop or a thrift store. And I would never have pointed out digestive biscuits, which, for those who don't know, are a really bland, sort of basic cookie that you dunk into tea. But yeah, it's an interesting line, an interesting choice.
Well,
Yeah, I really
since
like
we're on the
that one.
topic of that song, I was reading an NPR interview that Ann Powers did with Jarvis a couple weeks ago when the album first came out, and he talks about Tina. And I'll just read you this little bit, because if horny Jarvis doesn't make a distinct appearance on this record, Creeper Jarvis definitely does. So he says, "Tina is based on an actual person. I mean, I can't really say I ever knew her, because I never really spoke to her, but I had a kind of slight obsession with her. Someone that I almost spoke to at a party about 40 years ago, and then I would kind of encounter in very weird places. What does that mean? I used to think if you keep bumping into somebody, maybe you're supposed to be with them or something. Again, probably due to me being a bit of a shy person, so rather than just saying, okay, I'll go and talk to that person, just building a mythology about them without ever actually finding out what they're like. And it's not a very healthy way to live your life. So that song is an attempt to kind of get rid of that."
And so we have to probably now mention that Tina comes up in the very next song, which I think is also genius, in Grown Ups, where he says, "So you moved to Camden out of Hackney, and you stress about wrinkles instead of acne, and you forget about Tina," which I think is like super brilliant that he like brought her back for the very next song.
Yeah, I love that. That was like, that struck me instantly. And I love that callback too. And that song, Seth, I remember you texting that was the first one that really hit you on the record as like a classic Pulp track.
Yeah, I mean, I want to get to Paul's criticisms, but since we're on grown-ups, I just have to gush for a moment. I mean, this is a song that I never felt like I would hear a Pulp song like this again. And what I mean by that is, first of all, it continues to give me kind of tingles every time I listen to it. But You have the classic Jarvis storytelling. I think in the past, the storytelling for his songs was always very kind of current, even if he was looking back, it kind of, um, I think something like Disco 2000. Um, it's always about stories. The thing about this is like it really takes us through kind of him as a teen, I guess. Christmas 1985, it was the night they let me out of the home. And then it really kind of goes all the way up to, I don't know if it's modern day, but he's kind of taking the listener through kind of a chronology of growing up. I think one of the lines that sticks out to me in the beginning is when um he says, like the one that I heard of from Jeremy Sissons, who said he moved near the motorway because it was good for commuting, and I laughed in his face because I thought he was joking, but then I looked in his eyes and I saw he was not joking, he was trying. And not only is that classic Pulp, just Jarvis hitting the nail on the head as far as like a part of life, but it really kind of makes me think, when you're in your late teens, early 20s, you are kind of caught between this adolescence and this thing pulling you in the direction of being whatever a grown up was in that at that point. So I do remember, you're at a party or something, or you're just casually talking to a friend, maybe they're a few years older or whatever, and they have like slightly different things that they're doing in their life that are almost remarkable to you. It's just like, oh wow, you're on that, or maybe like friends are getting married or having kids and stuff, and that seems very adult to you because maybe you're 23 and you're still staying out till last call every night. But the other line in this song that just kills me is when he says, hold on, I'm not aging, I am just ripening, and life's too short to drink bad wine, and that's frightening. And the idea of someone being frightened by realizing that they don't want to drink cheap wine anymore because that means somehow they're getting on in their years is just I don't know. It hits me and it resonates with me. So yeah, this song, I love this song so much. Easily in the top 10 for me, with no bullshit of being
Top 10 of all Pulp
of
songs.
all Pulp songs.
Okay.
It's that good to me. And time does different things with art and especially music. So who knows if I'll still feel that way, but right in this moment, um, I can't say enough amazing things about Grown Ups.
I love it too. I actually the first 4 songs of the record I think are all fucking amazing. Like Spike Island, which I have to mention, the show I was at last year was where they debuted Spike Island.
Wow.
So that was pretty cool.
Show off.
Um, yeah. So Spike Island, Tina, Grown Ups, and Slow Jam, I think are all super badass. They're all great. That's not to say okay, so I'm gonna segue into my criticisms. The only song on the album that I'm kind of like, this to me is maybe a B-side, is Background Noise. It just doesn't really do a ton for me. How do you guys feel about it?
Wayne?
I like it, but it's not one that's a particular standout. I don't think it doesn't fit or it doesn't work. But yeah, it's not the most remarkable on the record. I get your point.
Yeah, it just kind of is there, and it is kind of cool that he references in the lyrics. He says, "Don't remember the first time," so there's another throwback lyric in there. I have to back up real quick because we forgot to mention in Grown Ups that he says he brings back "Are you sure?"
Hey,
which we've all always loved from Common People. But yeah, I don't even really have much to say. Like, I don't think the lyrics of Background Noise are particularly noteworthy. That's the one song to me I'm like, eh.
I suppose I could understand. I understood like the light buzzing of a fridge. You only notice when it disappears. Like I like that line. I think it's
Well, that's interesting. I was thinking about that line when I was listening to it today. Do you remember there was interview with Tom York where he was kind of like criticizing the music scene in general. And it was probably in the early 2000s. And he described like all the music that he heard on the radio as the sound of a buzzing fridge, which made me think like, is that a UK thing, like fridge buzz, or is it just a coincidence that both of those musicians used that
I think it's
terminology?
a coincidence, but you think
Okay.
about voltages in the UK, it's no surprise our fridges are buzzing.
I think maybe Tom is just stuck on that as a phrase because he uses it, of course, in Karma Police.
Yeah, that's true. And in the interview, I remember that somebody was like, well, Creep was just a huge hit around just mentioned Creep being a huge hit. And he said, oh, yeah, that was a good fridge buzz.
Yeah, we all know Tom and his feelings about Creep. Um, so, I mean, if we're talking about background noise specifically, I don't think I really it didn't really make an impression on me until maybe the third or fourth listen. And interestingly enough, Paul, I hear what you're saying, how the lyrics don't really do much for you. But I did, on repeated listens, I did kind of zero in on these lyrics and the fact that he's talking about essentially a relationship that has not soured, but just kind of reached a point of a shelf life where it's just there, like a buzzing of a fridge. You think
Yeah.
about you're sitting on the couch watching TV and the fridge is buzzing, but you've also kind of tuned it out because you've been hearing it for so long. You know what I mean? Um,
Yeah, go on.
well, I mean, to me, it shares very similar themes to at least like excitement to monotony as a song like Live Bed Show, where the protagonist or the focus of Live Bed Show is just like banging like her brains out and but then all of a sudden this bed is silent, you know what I mean? So it really kind of I think for as much as Jarvis wants to his lyrics are um sexual in a way, horny in another way, I think he often does touch on the flip side of that, like when some of the magic has gone away, or things have just kind of become status quo, right? And I know that since the last Pulp record in 2002, obviously he went through a divorce with his last wife, but something that I didn't catch on until I was reading this NPR interview with Ann Powers is that his current wife, apparently they split up before they got married for about a year. So who knows? It's hard to pin this on something personal in his life for him, or maybe it's just a social commentary on love in general. But I did connect with it musically. I'm not sure yet. I think I'd probably have to listen to the record a few times, but something made me zero in on it on a fourth or fifth listen. Um, and I did kind of stop and think about it.
Okay. I was just scanning through the lyrics and I get exactly what he's talking about. It doesn't have that Jarvis spark that a lot of the other songs have lyrically. The chorus is strong enough, but for whatever reason, it just doesn't pull me in.
For me, I feel like there's way more of a wistful looking back on things that could have been on this record, and maybe it's just that. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't have anything else to say about that song. I have lots of things to say about the other songs.
Yeah. Well, I want to hear more criticism.
The only real other criticism I have is that, and mentioned this in our last episode, is that I just don't love the way the Coca-Cola theme song was used for a sunset. It's just a little lazy to me. And like he tweaks the lyrics a little bit, but he doesn't tweak them in a good way. I'd like to what does he say? I'd like to buy the world some time. And it's like, all right. Like I don't know. It just bothers me. I'm like, don't you know, surely Jarvis is aware that Oasis already did this on one of their lamer singles. And I don't know, it just kind of irritates me. Like I just don't like it that much, and it kind of goes throughout almost the whole song. He keeps coming back to the Coca-Cola jingle. My preference would have been for A Hymn of the North to be the last song on the album. I think it's stronger, it's more orchestrated, it's more exciting. I don't hate A Sunset, but I think A Hymn of the North would have been a stronger closer.
I agree with that. And I think, see, I don't mind the Coca-Cola thing. I know it's a button thingy, but I didn't even think about it until you mentioned it. But the thing I thought was interesting on that one is that they credit the Earth for songwriting inspiration, and they will be directing a percentage of income via Earth Percent to organizations working to protect the planet. So, Paul, you not liking it basically means you don't like the Earth.
Well, I did not read that. Is that like in the credits for that
Yeah,
song?
it's on the sleeve, one of the sleeves.
Oh, I don't think I have that on my sleeve because I'm looking at mine right now.
It's not on the reddish one, orangish, pinkish one. It's on the grayish, brownish one. Beneath
Oh.
Pulp.
So, but that is nice. It's a nice gesture. I like it. Oh, right. A Sunset has like Brian Eno and his family on vocals. I forgot about that. Like it has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 Enos credited on it.
And all of a sudden it gets way more interesting.
And Richard Hawley plays guitar on that one as well.
So we can blame Holly for the Coke thing, right? I mean, someone's got to be the scapegoat.
Maybe.
Just kidding. I like Richard Hawley. I didn't realize this, but saying that Steve Mackey didn't necessarily have a present. I'm noticing that Grown Ups, Steve Mackey's listed as a songwriter as well as Got to Have Love. So he's on this record on two of my favorite songs off of.
That is interesting. Okay, all right. I pulled out the other LP and my 45 RPM version. I still am not seeing the thing about a sunset being dedicated to the earth or whatever. Oh yeah, there it is. Okay, there we go. I see it. That's nice. All right. I think Richard Hawley was a writer on the Hymn of the North as well. I think he was. Yeah, well, I swear that he was. But anyways, it doesn't matter. It does matter, but in the context here, I don't think it's a big deal. What else do you guys have to say?
Well, do we think we see another Pulp record after this?
Well, I said earlier that I kind of feel like they're riding this huge wave, and I wouldn't be surprised. It would probably be like not quick. I would say they're gonna take a break for at least a year, and then see where they're at. But I mean, they're all. How old are they? Are they all like in their 60s?
Yeah, I think Jarvis is 61, and the others have to be probably around that same age, I would think.
Candida is 61. Mark Webber, who I have to mention when I saw them last year, I was like, Mark Webber looks like a high school science teacher.
He definitely does. I got that same
Maybe
vibe
you
too.
said that. Nick Banks, the drummer, is 59. So yeah, I mean, they're not too old to continue on. But I think that I could see them doing another record. It would be weird for them not to. But I guess I could see them being like, well, let's just bow out on a high note. But Jarvis is not really the kind of guy just to retire.
No, not at all.
I want to say that I think Partial Eclipse is tremendous. I love that one. I don't know if I really have comments on the lyrics. I just think it's like a really lovely song. Yeah, really, that's all I have to say about that one. And if you don't mind me skipping around a little bit. On Grown Ups, the middle section or spoken word section about taking off to another planet because it looks like they're having a good time there. You know, that whole thing. And at the very end, he's like, why am I telling you this? I can't remember. It doesn't really have anything to do with the rest of the song, which I think is great.
Oh, it does though. It definitely does. It's talking about uh the rocket ship. They're taking it off because they see this other planet where they're having fun. Growing up, and when you're a kid, you just want so much to be that grown up and be able to do whatever the fuck you want to do. And then by the time they got to that planet, they look back on the planet they just left, which is youth, and they realize they're having fun. And then the I can't remember part is I think just I took that as like an aging thing. Like,
All
what
right.
was the point of my story?
Okay, that makes sense. I didn't really put that together, but it makes sense, and now I feel silly.
No, don't feel silly. I mean, come on. The amount of stuff that I don't pick up on in songs is like, I mean, a huge running list. I just happen to pick up on that one.
I guess to me, whenever I listen to that, it almost sounds like just a weird dream, but your interpretation of it totally makes sense, and you're probably right. Um, in any case, I do like that little bit.
I was just trying to find this part of this NPR interview where I read where he basically kind of, and I don't think this is the only reason why he's in Pulp right now, but he did mention that he likes big productions and the fact that Pulp draws. I'm paraphrasing here. So hopefully I'm capturing what his sentiment was. Pulp is the band that the most people will come to see, right? So it gives him the ability to have that bigger production, which just to touch on like just the videos I've seen from the UK shows, the production value is really fucking cool. Now, I think when they tour the US again, which I know they have some dates coming up in the fall, I don't really see them transferring that to the US, although I'm happy to be wrong. I just think in a lot of cases, shipping that type of stuff over the ocean and getting it here is probably more trouble than it's worth. I don't know.
What kind of stuff? I'm not sure what you mean.
Well, okay, now you're calling me on it, and I can't I can't exactly remember, but, I just remember seeing videos of, um here, hold on, I'm searching, give me 2 seconds.
I can feel the dead air. When I saw them, I thought it was interesting earlier when you said that the Oasis production in the intro and behind the stage was really good. And then you mentioned that Blur had nothing, but that's because we saw them in a pretty small theater. And then they're beholden to Glastonbury. But Pulp, I thought their backgrounds were really cool live with the big moon, all of the little teaser words that were coming up. I don't remember them specifically, but he had the throne that he came out on.
Throne was great. I
That
love
was really
that.
cool. Yeah. And that, yeah, there were just some really cool. Well, we've touched on the showman aspect of Jarvis. So I really enjoyed that. I thought it was a good visual as well.
Yeah, I'll probably have to get back to you on the production, but I had it,
I
like,
haven't
a
watched
week
any of the
ago.
videos, so I don't know.
Yeah. Anyways, my feeling is I can't believe Pulp released a great record like this. I can't believe they're back in touring. Can't believe Oasis is back in touring. It seems to be a very rewarding time for just people who dig this era, right? And I'm glad that the younger kids are kind of jumping on board and enjoying it, you know? Yeah.
I want to talk about Spike Island a little bit.
Yeah, let's talk about it.
So first, they have that funny sort of AI generated video, which I think Jarvis put together mostly as a commentary on AI, and where it's like he would put in prompts and it would result in very weird like images that didn't quite make sense. And I think that there was some backlash to the video because he used AI, but I think he was using it as best as he could, kind of just to show how it doesn't really work. And he just wound up with a bunch of funny things that I enjoyed it. I thought it was a pretty interesting video. I only watched it once, but I still enjoyed it. And then I guess I want to talk about just it has so it, Spike Island has to be a reference to the Stone Roses show, right?
I would that actually that's a good question.
Like, Wayne, do you agree with that? I mean, the famous Stone Roses gig.
Yeah, it must be, right? Because that's who they replaced at Glastonbury. Is that right?
Yeah. Yeah, they did.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um
It's also good to mention that their most famous ever performance, that Glastonbury one, they weren't even supposed to play.
Indeed, yeah. I mean, think about I think I remember reading Jarvis was, rightly so, just nervous, right? You're a band. Obviously, they had been a band for gosh, over 10 years at that point. What, 3 or 4 records in? Um, and yeah, there you are. You're on the stage, and I think they obviously seized the moment and kind of took it by its horns and just tamed it, and the rest is history.
So I guess I was thinking about this morning. My interpretation of Spike Island, which, has all these self-referential lyrics where he's just talking about how he was born to perform and pointing and shouting and stuff. He's clearly just talking about himself. And then the chorus is just, and by the way, Spike Island, come alive, which I guess I would interpret as him just being like, I want to give a performance that lives up to the legend of that Stone Roses gig, which, I mean, I'm sure there's a video of it, but I've never seen it. So I don't really know, but I know that most people consider that one of like the legendary 90s, you know, UK band performances.
Believe that show actually going into a Spike Island gig. I think that they have intended to record that.
Okay.
So you might not be able to find much about it. Yeah,
So
it's.
oh, go ahead, Wayne.
Sorry, maybe you guys can enlighten me. I was wrestling with a coat hanger. Can you guess who won? I don't get that line at all. But yeah, I wondered if you had any thoughts on it.
Yeah, the first verse is kind of like a little tough to interpret, but I feel like after that, it's like, oh, he's just talking about himself as a performer, and I feel like he references Spike Island as sort of a Northern Star, kind of like, this is the goal I'm trying to achieve, a performance that's that good. But yeah, Wayne, I don't know if I necessarily haven't. I like that line, wrestling with a coat hanger. Can you guess who won? I think is funny, but I don't quite get where it kind of fits in with the rest of the narrative. So, Farmer's Market is about how he met his current wife. Is that correct?
Yes, and the funny thing about that is at he that was the song that Pulp debuted at my show, which was at the Palladium in Los Angeles at the time. And it's hilarious because he's talking about the Fairfax Farmers Market, and he explicitly says this at that show. He mentions it by name, and it's so funny because just from our little group, that was Ehrman's favorite place to hang out, or maybe it was his wife's. I don't know, but I think he was equally as excited about it, and he'd always wanted to, meet me at the farmers market. So I just got a kick out of the fact that that's the farmers market that Jarvis is referencing in this song.
That's in LA then.
Yeah, which I think his wife. I don't know for sure. I think she was either living in LA at the time, or maybe she's from LA. I don't know. I forget.
I think it's also interesting that Jesus is referenced. He's referenced Jesus in the past. We already talked about that, and Jesus comes back on Slow Jam. I think it's very funny that Jesus says, "I feel your pain. God knows I share it too." um, I don't know. Like, I can't really imagine Jarvis being a religious person, but maybe he is.
We got a spiritual thing. Well, we won't be able.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's very much like, yeah, Wayne said. Ultimately, wow. I mean, I hate to look. I mean, if someone's just gushing about something, it can kind of get annoying at a certain point, right? But I can't say enough positive things about this album. I personally didn't think we'd ever see a new Pulp record, and never in a million years. Like I thought it would be if when they announced that the record was coming out, I knew it was gonna be good. I hoped it was gonna be great, but this far exceeded any expectations I had for it. It's fantastic.
It's hard to imagine Oasis being able to pull off a new record that lived up to the hype as much.
Yeah,
Maybe we'll
I
see.
agree.
I would welcome a new album by them. I'd be perfectly happy to have one.
Yeah, so would I. I mean, here's one where I would love to see what they would do right now. Um, and like I said, that's not always the case for bands that reunite, but Oasis, I would say, it would be the exception. One of the exceptions for me. Well, all right, gentlemen. Good chat.